Welcome everyone to today's World Elder Abuse Awareness Day event. We are so pleased that you're able to join us today. Our webinar that we're doing today on WEAAD is recognizing the rights of older adults. And what we are hoping to do is spark some social change movement in the way that we treat older adults and the way that we need to change issues around ageism to promote the rights of older adults. I'm so pleased that we are joined today with our partners, the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, CanAge, and the British Columbia Community Response Organizations, and planning this important event for individuals across Canada. Just a few housekeeping items as we get going. Everyone, all attendees will be muted and the cameras will be off. We are pleased to have ASL as LSQ interpreters. You can pin those people on your screen so they are visual at all times on the top of your screen. We also have French language available. There is a little globe on the bottom of the screen that you should be able to switch to French interpretation if you choose to do so. We will only have slides momentarily. Most of the session will be just speakers on screen. But during the time we have the presentation, you can adjust the screen size with the line between the speakers and the PowerPoint presentation to make the images a little larger on your own screen. So as I mentioned, the speakers will be visible during the presentations today. If you have a question, please put that in the Q&A box. We will be having time at the presentation for your questions to be answered to our panelists. If you'd like to make a comment, please post that in the chat box. And we have that monitored today throughout the session, and we'll be posting links during the presentation as well. And you'll find all that in the chat box. We also have an evaluation that we would appreciate your feedback at the end of the webinar. So if you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes to do that, we really appreciate it. And as you know, today we are recording our webinar, which will be posted on our websites within the next couple of days preceding today's session. So before we begin, I would like to provide a land acknowledgement for today's event. We begin this event, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, by acknowledging that we are hosting this event on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. As settlers, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet today, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Aboriginal peoples have been stewards of this land. We acknowledge the ancestral territories of Ojibwe, the Anishinaabe, and in particular, the Mississaugas of the New Credit, First Nations, whose territory we are joining from today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. We recognize and deeply appreciate their connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made both in shaping and strengthening this community and our province and country as a whole. As settlers, we know this recognition of the contributions and importance of Indigenous peoples must be paired with a collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation a reality in our communities and in our work. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's session. Many of you are probably very familiar with Laura Tamblin-Watts, the CEO of the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, or geez, of CanAge, the CEO of CanAge. Laura is a lawyer, advocate, and author. She's been working in the field of elder abuse for many years. She was a past chief policy officer for CARP and also a national director for the Canadian Centre for Elder Law. It gives me great pleasure to have Laura be our moderator today. I would just also like to thank my colleague Benedict Chaffon from the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, who was a partner in organizing today's webinar as well. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Laura to moderate today's session. Thank you.
Welcome to everyone for joining and celebrating with us today. It is 16 years since we had our very first World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, an important date that was created by, of course, a Canadian, Dr. Elizabeth Posniak. And many of you who I see in the chat were also on this journey from the very first day. You know, elder abuse has certainly had much more in terms of recognition. We have certainly seen the United Nations and the World Health Organization embrace it as a key issue. It's a day recognized by the UN General Assembly to raise awareness for the violation of older people's rights, which, as you all know, is often underestimated and, frankly, an ignored issue around the world. Every day, however, despite our collective efforts, seniors' rights are being violated, and we all know that. In fact, there are good estimations that during the course of this pandemic, we have seen elder abuse and neglect increase by an approximate 250%. Now, let's put that into a little bit of context. You know, many of us have been either in the front line serving during this pandemic. Many of us have been either in or supporting people in long-term care, retirement home, and assisted living. Many of your voices were the voices that was helping in communities to try to make sure that people who were left, frankly, alone in their homes had access to the most basic services. And yet Canada did a very poor job. Our sector did a very good job. We can see that we've done an immense amount of work during the pandemic. And I also want to take a personal moment to express my real and profound gratitude to all of you, whether it's creating, frankly, in a day's time, a community-based organization, whether it's creating an outreach program in the North, whether it's organizing door-to-door wellness checks, whether it's answering phone lines that are ringing 24 hours a day, it's been your work. I also want to take a moment to do something that not everybody does. I'd like to thank our governments and politicians, many of you who are joining today and helping to acknowledge and honor that. We know that in addition to your regular hard public service, that these last now almost 2.5 years have been an extraordinary effort on behalf of all Canadians that you have made. And I want to acknowledge the many hours of lost sleep, the many hours of checking into your communities while guiding our country forward. And so our gratitude to each and every one of you joining today. We have all a role to play in making our communities safer for all Canadians as we age. So not just for our population now as older people, but in, of course, that life course perspective. And this year, we're asking Canadians to take the pledge to become a champion of elder abuse prevention. And that's going to be a critically important component as we move forward. And so we invite our politicians, our government officials, we invite each of you from the community, from industry, from not-for-profits, and from your own families to take those pledges. At this point, we're going to share a little bit of a quick thank you around some of the sponsors that were allowed to make this event possible. So a quick thank you to all of our sponsors who helped to support World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, who will be listed again throughout the session. It has been a great pleasure to work with the Canadian federal government during this time, and we know that the importance that Minister Kara has given to elder abuse. And I don't think it's inappropriate to also comment that her passion is not simply a public service requirement, but she also dug out that stethoscope and she went to work as a nurse back in her long-term care facility. Bringing back her nursing skills to help vulnerable seniors in long-term care. And it's that kind of hands-on and passionate response that we've been seeing from her ministry. Today, I'm so very pleased and honored to introduce the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Seniors, Darren Fisher, to give us an address and also then to lead into one of our high points, the presentation of the 2022 Elizabeth Podniak Award in Canada. Parliamentary Secretary, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. I'm absolutely honored to be here today. So bonjour à tous. And that land acknowledgement prior to you, Laura, was just fantastic. I'm also going to, please, if you allow me, to acknowledge that I am speaking to you from the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe.
Du peuple Anishinaabe et du peuple Algonquin.
That many of the virtual participants, of which I think there are close to 800, are gathered on many sacred lands and traditional territories. Every June 15th, we mark World Elder Abuse Awareness Day to recognize and raise awareness about the effects of abuse on older persons. It is a day to voice our opposition to any form of elder abuse and ensure that older adults live in dignity. No matter who they are or where they are, Canadian seniors have the right to live safely and securely. Sadly, too many seniors, as it has been mentioned, are not afforded this right. According to the World Health Organization, 1 in 6 people over the age of 60 worldwide are victims of abuse. Steps must be taken to put an end to this serious and growing problem. That's why in summer of 2021, the Government of Canada launched national consultations to seek feedback on a federal policy definition of senior abuse. We are committed to strengthening our approach to senior abuse in all its forms. By working with stakeholders, partners, experts, and other levels of government, we can lay that groundwork to address it. And Laura, you spoke about our minister, Kamal Kara, and I couldn't agree more. The right person is tasked with this massive job. I know that the thought of harm coming to our parents, grandparents, or any senior is disheartening to most Canadians. So today, to mark World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, I'm asking you to sign a pledge to help protect older Canadians from elder abuse. It's a simple commitment to help in whatever way that you can, from learning to recognize the signs of elder abuse and how to respond or refer seniors for help, to working within your community to make this issue a top priority. Whatever you can do to help, a little caring goes a long way. We have a part to play in protecting older Canadians. Abuse against older persons is not only physical, it can be neglect, it can be psychological, it can be financial. Raising awareness and recognizing the signs of elder abuse are the first steps to help prevent and end it. For example, you could look for fear, anxiety, depression in relation to a family member or a friend or a caregiver, unexplained physical injuries, poor nutrition or hygiene, improper use of medication, or maybe a sudden drop in cash flow or sudden changes to legal documents. The need for physical distancing during the COVID-19 pandemic has put seniors at an increased risk of abuse, since so many seniors are living in isolation and do not have access to their usual community supports and social connections. One older Canadian suffering from abuse is one too many. Please sign the pledge and please join the movement against elder abuse. I want to thank all the folks here today. I want to thank the organizers for this meeting and for all the individuals on this Zoom today that do so much for seniors in their communities. Thank you so much. Merci, Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Parliamentary Secretary. It's now, I think, one of my most delightful opportunities to help recognize so many of our unsung leaders in the field. The Dr. Elizabeth Pozniak Award for Elder Rights in Canada was created 2 years ago. And this year, I'm going to have the great honor of turning it over to Parliamentary Secretary Fisher to officially announce the award winner, and then to turn it over to her to provide a few remarks in response.
Thank you so much again, Laura. And I will tell you, this is like, for a politician, this is like cutting a ribbon with a really big pair of scissors. When we get the opportunity to acknowledge the incredible things that individuals do across Canada, it warms the heart. So fittingly, today, as we mark World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, I would like to take the time to recognize this year's, as you said, the Elder Rights in Canada Award recipient. Now, this year, I'm honored to present this year's award to, and I don't know if we want to do a drum roll, 800 people on their desks across Canada, to Sherry Baker. Sherry has played a fundamental role in protecting the rights of older adults across Canada through her work, her volunteerism, and her advocacy within her community. Sherry previously served as the chair of the BC Centre for Elder Advocacy and Support, and was on the Township of Langley's Sustainability Task Force and its Seniors Advisory Committee, which I think I might be meeting with them near the end of the summer. Sherry is also, very often when you award great people with these types of things, it's very hard to list off everything that they do. Sherry is also the vice chair of the Older Adult and Caregivers Advisory Committee for Age Well. It is a great pleasure to present this award to you, Sherry, on behalf of the Government of Canada, the Minister of Seniors, Kamal Khera, and all Canadians. Thank you from the bottom of this very warm heart for your advocacy and your incredibly hard work. Thank you, Sherry. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sherry. I hope that you're able to take the proverbial stage to say a little thank you and comments back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Laura, especially, because we go back a long way in our work together, maybe 15 or more years. And Parliamentary Secretary Fisher, thank you so much for your kind words. I really do appreciate it. And this was just it was a big surprise. I had no idea. I think when we're working in this field of social justice and community development, we don't really get our heads up from the ground very often to think that anyone else is even noticing. So it was really nice to hear about that. My main work is as the executive director of the BC Association of Community Response Networks. And I really need to hand a huge amount of gratitude to the provincial government of British Columbia and the Ministry of Health, because they fully fund the work that we do in the communities throughout BC. We are working at the community level. We have at the moment 83 self-governing networks, and their job is to build the awareness of abuse, neglect, and self-neglect of vulnerable adults in their communities. It touches about 245 communities throughout BC, and we have people supporting those communities and working with us on a part-time basis, because we are depending on the communities to do the work. So we know that the elder abuse is a hidden incident that takes place. And with the increase of 250%, which of abuse, neglect, and self-neglect throughout the country, I would suspect that there's an awful lot of that has been going on for a long time, and it wasn't just new over the pandemic, but we're able to shine a light on it and be able to start to once you get an awareness of it, you can do something about it. And so that's what we are doing, and we really are. I think we've had an evaluation going for the last 10 years, and we are actually increasing the awareness. before I close, I just wanted to tell you how moved I am, because Elizabeth Podniaks and Lynn McDonald are kind of icons in this work across Canada. And ever since I've been doing this work, I've always looked up to them and admired them and took you know, a lot of information and from the work that they're doing to help the work that I'm doing. And it never occurred to me that I would be in that same rarefied world. So I'm really happy to do that. And I also want to thank Margaret MacPherson, you're going to be hearing later. We've worked together on the It's Not Right Neighbors, Friends and Family work for the last 10 or 12 years. And I'm also working, as you know, with Age Well and CanAge to make sure that the work that we're doing is spread across the country. So thank you all very, very much. And I really appreciate this recognition. Thank you.
And Sherry, I hope that you can see all of the congratulatory fingers waving and all of the comments in the chat. They are heartfelt and well-deserved. So grateful for your work. And I know that, you know, it's just more work to do, but it's nice to every so often have a little bit of recognition. Another really important part of this conversation is acknowledging the leadership from various governments. 16 years we've been working in this area, and we are really seeing governments leaning in. And so I am going to start from East with our introduction to the Honorable John Abbott, who of course is the Minister for Seniors, Children, Social Development, responsible for the status of persons with disabilities, community sectors, and responsible for the Newfoundland Labrador Housing Commission. And why I think that that list is so important is not just that he wears a million hats, but that he sees those connections amongst them. So with no further ado, Minister, to you.
Thank you, Laura. And first and foremost, congratulations, Sherry, from the East Coast to the West Coast. So hopefully we'll get to meet in person, but I was very glad to hear of your award and the recognition. And as I heard and see, you're in the trenches and you know why we're here today. If nobody else does, you certainly do. So thank you very much. And Darren Fisher, thanks Darren for the introduction to Sherry, and certainly for spelling out from the federal perspective. I'm just gonna, I guess, say the obvious here. This is a great day, and I'm glad we are recognizing it and celebrating it. And the fact that we have as many people on the call today speaks to the importance of it, and that we can continue to strive. I know there's some people here from the Newfoundland Labrador government and agencies in the province, such as Seniors NL, that are on the call here today. So folks, please chime in when you can during today's session. One of the things I just wanted to highlight that we're certainly pleased to offer and participate in the pledge to work with our community to make elder and senior abuse a priority, and that's something I'm personally committed to. And we want to promote education so that we'll learn to better recognize signs of elder abuse. And I think as Sherry alluded to, it can be very, very subtle, but we know it's there. And now it's becoming to the forefront, and our community agencies and governments are now finally really stepping up to the plate to address that and to raise awareness, how to respond, how to report. So one of the things that we've done here since I've taken over this role is we've gone into our legislature last fall to look at our Adult Protection Act and how we can improve it on many fronts, and so that reporting becomes more transparent, and it's easier that people know within the community the lines of communication and the lines of how to report, and the onus on us as officials to respond, working with our police and community partners. So we've pulled that together in new amendments, which were passed unanimously in our House of Assembly. So I was very pleased to be able to shepherd that through our House of Assembly. We built on best practices across the country. And as other jurisdictions look at their legislation and practices, we'll continue to build on ours. So the government of Newfoundland and Labrador is certainly committed to working with the community, working with our professionals in the community, whether it's our social workers and community workers and the like, to identify, support families. One of the early calls I got in this job was around the concern about elder abuse in my constituency. And I was very happy to receive the call, because that meant a neighbor was actually looking out towards their neighbor. And we were able to intervene, get the right resources in place. And that individual now is in a much secure, appropriate housing setting. And the concerns of abuse and neglect are hopefully no longer in his world. So I want to commend everybody here on the call today, certainly my colleagues that are on the call, to keep up the good work, keep championing the issues, making sure we raise the awareness, ring the alarms when they need to, and making sure at the same time the research is done, the policy work is done, so that I, as minister, with my colleagues, make sure we have the best legislation that we can in this country, and that we should be leaders, certainly in the Western world, if not elsewhere. So thank you, Laura. I'll pass it back to you, and thanks for your leadership as well.
Thank you, Minister. And I just wanted to acknowledge the great work that Newfoundland and Labrador is having, a real focus work on it, both at that community level. I get emails from Mary Innes more than just about any other person, and also just the fantastic work that the government is also leading in this regard. It's my great pleasure to leap up to some of the north of the country. And at this point, I would love to invite the Honorable Julie Green to the proverbial stage, who is, of course, Minister for Health and Social Services, Minister responsible for persons with disabilities, and Minister responsible for seniors of the Northwest Territories. Minister Green.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. And I'm coming to you from Yellowknife, which is Treaty 11 territory that belongs to the Yellowknife Dene First Nation and to the North Slave Métis Alliance. So this is a great day. I want to echo what Minister Abbott just said, that this issue has this kind of profile and reach, thanks to your organizational efforts. It is very important. I recognize, as the minister responsible for seniors, how hard the pandemic was on the seniors. And actually, their physical health was only a part of it. It really, there were so many other ways in which seniors struggled to have their basic needs met, to stay safe, to have their social needs met. It was a very challenging time. Here in the Northwest Territories, the government funds the NWT Senior Society to activate elder abuse workshops. There is an elder abuse prevention network. There is a 1-800 number. So we have a number of ways for seniors to be protected from abuse. But the biggest challenge is having seniors themselves say that they need the help. We don't feel that we have good data on how many seniors are abused, where they live, what their circumstances are. We just have the general information that is gleaned from the workshops. So we do, however, feel that it is a significant problem. And it's a problem that I think this pledge drive will raise the profile of. And I think that that's really a good thing for people to recognize this issue for what it is, and to learn how to identify it, and also how to intervene in a way that's sensitive to the fact this is a family matter. It's an aspect of family violence. People don't often want to talk about that, but yet it is a very important issue. So I'm happy to promote the pledge, and to make sure that we all understand across society that elder abuse is a problem, there is a remedy, and that we're part of the solution. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you so much for your leadership, your commitment, and frankly, your passion in this area, which is so obvious. When we are thinking about how elder abuse and neglect is addressed in different areas, it's so important to understand the context that people are living in and understand that local conversation. And I'm excited to see that you're building that capacity in your territory. Again, thank you for your leadership, Minister. And we heard the pledge there as well. At this time, I'm going to move to inviting the presentation from the Honorable Jason Copping, who's the Minister for Health for Alberta. Minister Copping.
Great. Laura, thanks so much for inviting me and the Government of Alberta. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of my colleague, Minister Pon, who's the Minister of Seniors and Housing, and quite frankly, on behalf of myself. And I'm coming to you from Calgary, which is the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 nations in southern Alberta and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. And this is very pleased to participate. It's great to see a number of organizations from Alberta participating in the webinar, and a number of my colleagues from across the country, both provincially and federally. And I want to also comment on Sherry Baker and wish you all the best in receiving the award. And thank you for your incredible work. As indicated by Laura, you said earlier, and Parliamentary Secretary Fisher, this is an important day, and this is a serious issue in regards to addressing elder abuse. It's not acceptable for anyone in any form, anywhere, at any time. And I'm pleased that our government is taking strong action to address this issue. Actions like providing the Alberta Elder Abuse Awareness Council a grant of $750,000 over 2 years to provide surge funding for elder abuse case management across our province, particularly right now, and also developing the Addressing Elder Abuse Toolkit to help communities increase their capacity to deal with elder abuse when identified. We've also taken time to gather stakeholder and public input to develop a new provincial definition of elder abuse, a definition that can be applied consistently to all policies and programs. And that will help us focus the issue more precisely, which will in turn improve the safety and well-being of Alberta seniors. I know everyone at the table and on the call knows that we all have a role to play to prevent elder abuse. You know, anyone can take the time to learn about elder abuse, watch for the signs, and know how to report it. Now, our province offers a wide range of online resources and information tools online, including the Get Help Elder Abuse webpage, which is on our alberta.ca, and we have fact sheets and telephone helplines as well. And that's why it's also so important, in terms of raising awareness this day and this webinar to be able to identify elder abuse. And thank you so much for driving forward with the pledge, because that's going to help us by working together to be able to understand where it's happening and then how we can react. So once again, thanks so much for having me, and wish everyone the best in the webinar.
Minister Copping, it's wonderful to hear the commitment at that local level and also that pledge at the provincial level as well. And I know that Minister Pon is also going to be sharing some remarks a little bit later, and wanted to acknowledge Alberta's leadership in this field. Great to see those local investments. I can tell you lots of Albertans on our call today are really pleased to hear about those investments and your continued personal and professional commitment in the area. Thank you so much, Minister. I'm now going to share from the ministry that I am in. I'm in Nova Scotia today, and the Honorable Barbara Adams has been a real long-term advocate, and this is her first time in this role. And we have a little message, I think, from Minister Barbara Adams from Nova Scotia. Marianne? This is where you always hope the video will roll. Just see if it will roll now. While we're getting the video just up and ready, I also wanted to do a special call out and thank you. While he's not speaking today, the Honorable Tracy Ann McPhee, Deputy Premier, Minister of Justice, Minister of Health and Social Services of the Government of Yukon is here today, and also into supporting our pledge. So these are the greetings from the Honorable Barbara Adams of Nova Scotia.
Hello, I'm Barbara Adams, Minister of Seniors and Long-Term Care for Nova Scotia. I'm pleased to join you in recognizing this important day. Today has been proclaimed World Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Nova Scotia. Our province is committed to ensuring older Nova Scotians can live with dignity and get the care they need when they need it. We're also committed to making sure older Nova Scotians are safe and protected, and helping them live healthy, active, and engaged lives in their communities. Older Nova Scotians are vital members of our communities, and they've earned and deserve our respect. There is simply no place for abuse. We all have a duty to make sure seniors are safe and secure. Part of this is educating people so they recognize the signs of abuse and know what to do if they are concerned that abuse is taking place. Through adult protection and protection of persons in care, our work to protect seniors and ensure they're safe is ongoing. We work closely with everyone who works with seniors, so all cases of suspected abuse are reported and fully investigated. As a province, we have and continue to invest in preventing elder abuse and making our communities age-friendly. Examples of initiatives underway are the Senior Safety Program, which educates and builds understanding of elder abuse, crime prevention, safety, and health issues, and provides someone that people can turn to if they think someone may be experiencing abuse. Our Age-Friendly Communities Grant provides funding for projects that help older Nova Scotians stay active and community-wide efforts to create age-friendly environments. I want to thank the Canadian Network for Prevention of Elder Abuse and CanAge for their work on this front. We share a commitment to ensuring older people are safe from all forms of abuse and neglect. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Minister Adams, for your great work and commitment. Again, I know a passion area of hers and one that she's been working on very closely with her governments. We're now going to thank our government speakers. We're going to let them off the stage at this point, and we're going to invite everybody to turn our minds a little bit to both the core work of this year and the acknowledgement that we need to make sure that these pledges are integrated at the government level, the research level, and the community level. And with no further ado, I'm going to invite Rayanne to share the bios of our panelists, but I will say their names for the interpreters on this call. So the first, I'm very pleased to welcome Mélanie Couture, Ph.D. and of institutional researcher at the Center for Research and Expertise in Social Gerontology, who's joining us from Montreal. Dr. Stephanie Hatzafilias, Ph.D., Department of Health, Aging and Society at McMaster University, and Secretary and Communications Officer of the Gilbrea Center for Studies in Aging Student Group, and she's joining us from Hamilton. Helen Hirsh Spence, founder of Top 60 Over 60. I think you're in Ontario today. Margaret MacPherson, research associate at the Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children. Gregor, executive director of Helpage Canada, and Jane Osborne, the BC Community Response Network's regional mentor of Vancouver Island, Central, and the North. The discussion today centers around citizens, advocates, professionals, and leaders in communities and governments who are taking an active role in ending ageism and elder abuse. Their perspectives demonstrate the pathways that we can all take to create social change in society and promote the rights of every person as we age in this country. I'm going to start our wonderful presentations and discuss today by inviting Margaret. And we're going to ask Margaret to tell us a little bit about the incredibly exciting work that's been going on, yeoman service off the side of desks of people across the country for the last year and a half, creating our roadmap called Future Us. Margaret, over to you.
Thank you so much, Laura. It is such a pleasure to be here today and to see so many people who are committed to this work on the call. So thank you very much. I am just going to give you just a sort of a little bit of a teaser about Future Us. It's a strategy that's been put together by a collaborative group over the last year. It is designed as a pan-Canadian engagement strategy to acknowledge that elder abuse and ageism are in every community across the land, and to recognize that it's not just an individual issue, but a societal issue that requires an ecological approach with interventions and aligned investments in prevention and responses that are made locally, regionally, and nationally. There is so much good work that is already happening. So many committed people, some of whom you've already seen on the call today, who contribute to positive social change every day. It is a true statement that we are stronger when we are together. So awareness is a beginning point. From awareness, we need to move to collective action. So the roadmap has on-ramps with practical everyday actions for citizens, leaders, organizations, communities, and governments. It's in all of our interests to achieve 3 broad goals that you can see on the screen there. We want to prioritize prevention of elder abuse and neglect in every community. So this means rolling up our sleeves at that local level everywhere to work toward this goal. We want to establish and support elder abuse prevention networks at local, regional, and national levels. This will give us infrastructure that allows information, ideas, knowledge to travel up, down, and across the system. And I think it goes a long way to reducing the isolation that people feel in trying to address such tough, complex social issues, by being part of something that is truly pan-Canadian in its vision. The third goal is, I think one of the ministers spoke to it, is something we can all do, and that's learn to recognize the warning signs of abuse and neglect, how to respond safely and effectively, and where to find help in the community. It's most often the people who are right around the older people who are experiencing abuse and neglect who see what's happening but don't know what to do. And so this is our third goal. Future Us aims to consolidate and build on what is already working. Let's learn how to pool our actions to achieve collective goals. To be successful, we have to work collaboratively, also systematically towards large-scale social change, valuing all kinds of contributions and building the relationships as we go. Fundamentally, it is an engagement strategy. We want to touch the hearts and minds of everyone we meet, because everyone does have a role to play. We do need you, and you need to know what role you can play. That's what the roadmap has been designed to do. So please visit the Future Us website to find out how you can do that and join us, because it's true, we build the road as we walk it. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Margaret. It's such an exciting development to have the Future Us work, and we really invite you to go to the links which you can see in the chat, or just Google Future Us, Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse, and you will see it. It is truly a superb strategy, and of course provided bilingually. I also want to share with you that there are videos associated with that, which you can find on YouTube and through the link for implementing Future Us at community levels, policy levels, legislative levels, and others. So it's not a flat document. It really is a pathway. At this point, I am going to take that work that you've been talking about in terms of our pledge and our concern around this intergenerational approach, because when we're thinking about the Future Us, we're talking about all of the generations together. And who better to talk to us a little bit more about that than Stephanie. So I'm going to invite Stephanie to the stage. We're really excited to hear about your co-housing project and some of the great work that you're doing on intergenerationalism. Stephanie, over to you.
Thanks, Laura. I think we can all personally firsthand talk about the power of intergenerational connections and that effect that it's had on us personally, either that be through familial relationships or non-familial relationships. And I mean, I think in the context of elder abuse, what we're talking about is really combating ageism through these intergenerational connections, right? How can we foster, how can we foster solidarity? How can we foster compassion across generations? And I always like to ask my students on the first day of a lecture, when was the last time you interacted with someone above the age of 65? And it's kind of like, oh, I did, and it's oftentimes, oh, my grandparent. And then I'll ask, okay, well, how many times have you interacted with someone above the age of 65 that's not a family member? And it's kind of like crickets. So it's something to me that I think we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of amazing opportunities. I've personally worked with several organizations. I've also co-led, as Laura said, a home share program where we connect seniors in the community with students. I've led photo story projects, and really at the heart of it, I think it's showcasing the experiences and the rich life stories and really supporting personhood for those in later life.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. Really exciting work. Jane, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point. You've been talking about intergenerational for years now. Maybe share a little bit about what some of the great work that you're doing.
That's true. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I'll just start by saying, okay, I am a queer senior. I work with marginalized populations for the most part and thrive on that. And what, of course, I'm going to give you an example from the LGBTQ queer trans world, which is a youngster, 22-year-old Evangelina Schultz, pronouns he, they, graduated from an alternative school 2 years ago, partially estranged from a non-supportive family, who has been attending our Reaching Out Love CRN meetings and that Community Response Network meetings. And then as a consequence, has gone from living in a car to a suite in the home of one of our members. But we have learned so much from him. It's just unbelievable what we've learned. We have almost conquered using pronouns that don't seem right or congruent. It's educating each other. Younger people have a different education, they have a different worldview. And since the older, gay, lesbian world is largely quite privileged, and dominantly cisgendered, right? This is an education that we need, and it works both ways. So that's, one sample. I have several others. My mentors are mostly 22-year-olds at this stage of the game. We co-mentor, and there's huge value in both directions. It's huge value for me to have young people as a queer senior without grandchildren be sharing their lives with me. So I can't say enough about it. The more we can do to encourage that kind of activity, the better. Speaking as Sherry's renegade, regional mentor for BC Community Response Networks, I am totally focused at the moment on working together with the health authority, with police, with community, with individual groups on responding better, because we've informed a lot of people and there's a lot of awareness, and it falls apart when we get to the response piece.
It does, Jane. And we know that you've been on the forefront of that response piece for many years. And I want to give a special shout out to you on that and your leadership, particularly in our LGBTQS community, queer and trans communities. And happy Pride, Jane. Happy Pride.
Yes.
I want to move now to my friend and colleague, Helen. And Helen, I'm going to prompt you. You've been working on language as a big point of conversation. Words like generations and age groups and cohorts are things that you and I have talked about over the years, but you've also been really focusing on things like diversity, equity, inclusion, and trying to locate where age falls in that. I'm going to toss it over to you to share some of your insights in your journey.
Well, thank you, Laura. I have to say, we can't find the age in the diversity, equity, and inclusion, strategy, policy. It seems to be absent in almost 90% of cases, even though we know that age diversity is critical to the success of businesses when you have mixed generations. I can speak from personal experience, having been an educator for over 35 years in secondary schools. I had staff and students who I interacted with daily, and they were the most impressive mentors that I could ever have found. And they continue to be, because there are continuous relationships. But with regard to the language, what I have found, or what I have been also instructed to do by others who are in this area, is to try to avoid using the word generation. Instead, use words like mixed age workforce, age diverse, talk about groups, talk about cohorts, and avoid generation, simply because we tend to divide and conquer. We polarize everything when we talk about generations. And we've had the tendency, unfortunately, to play us versus them in these kinds of conversations, which isn't intended. And sometimes it's very easy to fall back into that. So I think it's one of those training moments we have to really be conscious, and I'm guilty of it all the time. But I'm learning, and I'll continue to learn.
At CanAge, we're part of that Living, Learning, Earning Longer collaborative that I know that you're very familiar with as well. And we talk about the 5-generation workforce. Yep. And really bringing in that age inclusivity. And one of the asks and the pledges that we're asking people to think about today is not just to keep it in the government or community level, but business is such an important part. Business that we interact with, but also business that we work for and with. And so I really want to thank you for your leadership, because we do need to get into that space, and your expertise has been inspiring to all of us in that area. Stephanie, I want to come back to you just for a really quick second, because this prompts a thought that I have around technology. We're on technology, we're surrounded by technology, but I'm always worried about algorithms and AI and what's that doing to us. Could you just speak for just a minute or two about some of your work in that idea there about age, ageism, abuse, and technology?
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, Helen, or
who are you talking to?
Well, actually, I'm going to ask Stephanie first, and then I'm going to come back to Helen.
Okay.
Okay. I think, my postdoctoral work now focuses on ageism and big data, and looking at how not only how people experience ageism, but also how it's kind of embedded in our systems, and how the people who design all of these products and design all of these different forms of technology, either that be through a device or a data object, looking at, let's say, Fitbits or smart homes or new kind of gadgets that come into our homes on a daily basis, is how do these devices and data objects really reinforce ageism, or who are they really designed for? So we don't know a lot yet. It's a new field, it's emerging, and I'm really excited to get to do a lot of work with the community and with older people especially, and figuring out and designing products that are actually, useful to them too.
And I'll just give a little shout out to our key partners, AgeWell, which many of you will know is Canada's network centers of excellence on aging and technology. And we'll put the link there in the box. It's not just user experience for aging population, but it's where those engendered narratives, either narratives that reinforce or in fact are advancing ageist narrative. So not even just reinforcing our existing one. Gregor, I want to turn to you right now, if I may. You and I've had a lot of conversations over the years. And one of the things we often talk about is that self-referential ageism, and that ageism that we embed in ourselves, and how that normalizes some of the abusive environments that we're working in. And so can you share a little bit about some of the work that you're doing and Helpage is doing, and thinking through some of those key issues?
Sure. Thanks, Laura. I think that we recently Helpage Canada works in Canada, and we also work as a network member with Helpage International. And I can't remember who it was earlier who noted that the WHO suspects that 1 in 6 people over the age of 60 experience abuse. That's before the pandemic. And another fact is that only 4% of elder abuse is reported. Another study that we conducted with 5,000 people in India pointed out that only 33% of men and 34% of women would report any kind of abuse. And I know from our own experience, even in Canada, working with many communities, particularly some Indigenous or ethnocentric communities that we work with, you know, there is such a one experience working with some elders, and they were, you know, privately sharing the how some of their sites have been desecrated by younger people, and there was an opportunity to kind of share that with the community, but they wouldn't say a word because they don't want to discourage their youth. They have a great honor and respect and love for their people that they wouldn't want to publicly
I'm
shame
sure
somebody.
mode.
Oh, sorry, somebody jumped in there. So, and I think that the challenge or the reason why
if I want, I can go and talk, but then my voice is going to
I
come
think
in.
we need to mute somebody there.
We have our French interpreter speaking over. My apologies. We'll make sure that we do that as well, Gregor.
That's the problem. They cannot get the
okay,
thing.
we may just mute that French interpreter. My apologies, Gregor, over to you.
I'll just
and says language interpretation. Sorry. There's a new message, language interpretation.
I'll just wrap up maybe while we're solving that issue to say that so the reason why we can have these kinds of statistics that point out that only 30% of people would report, or sorry, 4% of somebody would report, is that we live within such an ageist backdrop.
I didn't get an invitation, so I don't know what's going on. Let me ask you 1 second.
I'm sorry, just 1 second. My apologies. You know, in our strong effort to make sure we have as much inclusivity in language, we are now crossing over a little bit into it. I'm going to just hold on 1 second. I don't want you to be interrupted there, Gregor.
I just asked him.
And I am going to be the person that speaks for just a minute. So if anyone's thinking bumped into it, it will be me. You know, one of the things that I wanted to just throw back to you right now is some of the experiences that Helpage has had. So you've been addressing the issues at the local level. You've been a generator on trying to respond to people during the pandemic.
But I did register and everything, my name, my last name, the emails, confirmation of the emails and everything.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so maybe what we're going to do right now is just okay, this is interesting. I can move to French if you like. Si on veut parler en français. Ça va être un peu mieux comme
because I'm
okay. Gregor, my apologies. I'm so sorry. Okay. As I say, I know that you're deeply committed to bilingualism, and who knew that it would be so committed that it would happen directly during your presentation.
No problem.
So I wonder if you could just pick up a little bit on the comments you were making before. I think we have it sorted.
I just would like to add, you know, part of another issue that we faced during the pandemic was that there are very few countries that even have disaggregated data on older people and of gender-based people. So how could that possibly be? And then you have always the depiction of older people as frail and vulnerable, which that is true in many cases, and they need to be addressed. But what I'm trying to get at is that it points out that we already live within such an ageist backdrop that we all in some ways assent to. As we know, you go look at the birthday cards, look at how makeup is presented and celebrated. All of the ways that we engage with older people. My own little daughter was at an acting class and had to imitate an older person, and of course there's only, you know, she's a very frail older person. So I really feel that it's important for us to build capacity at a social level and build those structures to create the environment where ageism is addressed foundationally. So whether that's creating the capacity for digital literacy, age-friendly community development, whether that's transportation or design of communities, and intergenerational programming at the community level, so that older people, as Stephanie was saying, what a great question that she offered at the beginning of her lectures, is, you know, the fabric of our society needs to re-engender a intergenerational identity, and it's a big piece of work that we all have to participate starting with ourselves, with our own biases, our own choice of language, and our own ways that we deal with one another in community. So I just
amazing. Thank you. And thank you for your patience here as well. Helen, I wanted just to go back to you if I could just for a second. So could you just speak a little bit to why you created the Top 60 Over 60 award to begin with? Why did it matter to you to create one?
It's very, very simple. I started experiencing ageism personally and at a very deep and significant level. So I had been a leader. As I said, I was in schools my entire career. I mean, I spent over 55 years in schools, either personally or with students or in learning myself. And so I thought I had confidence, but it was remarkable how once I hit a certain age, which is about my early 60s, that I felt invisible, I felt irrelevant, I was overlooked, my hair was getting gray, so I dyed it until more recently. There were all those indicators. I thought that I was experiencing this myself, and I didn't peg it to ageism until I started to do the research. So I was a great example of the person who grew up in this youth-centric culture, who only saw the benefits of being young and nothing old, and who, internalized it. So I self-directed, internalized ageism was alive and well in me, who normally would have been seen as an extroverted, confident person. And yet I lost it. And speaking to other men and women, but particularly women, because they tend to talk about these things more, I realized it was quite universal. And that's when, with more research. So we're now in the process of trying to find some partners to get this Top 60 Over 60, because we need to have inspirational role models. And the truth is, there are more of us like me in our 70s that are starting new things and doing, contributing still. But that's not the narrative. We've got to change it.
Changing that narrative is such a critically important work, and we're thrilled that you're doing this. And this shows one way that our pledges can really take action. And I really want to acknowledge you and your leadership in that world, and frankly, your leadership as well in making that diversity, equity, and inclusion narrative part of it. I really heard you when you said, where is the age in that? It's not anywhere. And that's certainly our experience as well. And we're really happy that you are addressing the elder abuse narrative from that place of business, from that place of human resources. And it's a really important piece. So thank you for that. Mélanie, I got to send out a tweet the other day, and I actually started clapping my hands and jumping around the house. And my husband thought that was a bit peculiar until I just said, you won't believe what Quebec just did on elder abuse. Can you speak a little bit to what's been happening in your province and what that big announcement was? And I hope it's the same announcement that had me dancing around, because that's a whole different conversation. Maybe you could share a little bit about what's happening with you in Quebec.
Yeah, well, actually, there's a lot of things going on. So I'm going to talk about two things. So maybe one of them is the one that make you jump up. So actually, on Sunday, the Quebec government unveiled their third action plan. Usually they last about 5 years. And this time they actually gave $50 million to actually put the plan in place.
Yes, that was the dancing part.
Yeah, that was the dancing part. Yeah. So the budget actually became bigger and bigger each time. So now we're up to 50 million right now. It's actually to implement about a little more than 50 initiatives within the province of Quebec. The initiatives are structured around about 5 main objectives. So raising awareness. And for example, one of the initiatives is about making the media more aware of their ageist discourse. So it's not just about the public, but also the media. We all know that usually older adults are presented as either active aging or somebody who's really sick. So there's no heterogeneity in the aging that's being up on the screen or in articles and things like that. So that's pretty much going to help. Well, it's also about promoting well treatment. So it's not just about mistreatment anymore, but putting in place initiative in different contexts. For example, one is about senior residences to help implement practices to promote well treatment in these type of contexts. There's a lot of initiatives about training. My research center is actually involved in developing training for the whole social and healthcare system, community organization, and also the financial sector. So everybody's getting the information about mistreatment in general, but also about ageism at the same time. And we're also trying to improve the management of mistreatment situation. We were talking earlier about structuring the system. So we also have now a law that has been actually upgraded, I could say. So in May 2017, we actually had the law 6.3 put in place to counter mistreatment. This April, so that's the second news, it's been upgraded to include new information and new initiatives to actually be able to upgrade the level of accountability of different people. For example, now we have, if you mistreat somebody, you might have to pay a lot of money because of that. And also we've made different roles clearer, because when you're trying to counter mistreatment, people have to know who's doing what and when, but the law is actually helping about accountability. So it's not just about knowing who's doing what, but you're supposed to do it. The law is telling you also. Right. So it's easier to implement that way. And what has been a really good thing about the law is that each social and care establishment actually has to have an institutional policy, which means that within this institutional policy, you have to describe complaint and reporting procedures. So it's not, and also have somebody who's responsible for implementing the policy also. And like I said, we have sanctions, and also you have to describe how you will follow up on the complaint and the reports of mistreatment also. And the other thing that's really great about this law is that we have a concerted intervention process, which means that within different establishments, a designated person is there to take on a case and then bring it to other people with different expertise. So it could be within the social and healthcare system, the police, the public curator, Commission des droits de la personne et de la jeunesse, Autorité des marchés financiers. So all of these organizations now has a designated person who will actually implement and say, okay, come on, we're putting on the process, the concerted process, and we're going to work together to actually manage this mistreatment situation. So it's really about having all the expertise put together, the financial, the legal one, the medical, and also the psychosocial all together, because usually you need all of them to be able to manage a situation appropriately. So that's pretty much most of the information from Quebec. Actually, the new law, as is on the website from the government, and it's in English and in French. So if you want to read it, it is in English now. And also we are translating right now the concerted intervention process in English, so it will be available soon also for people in other provinces to actually be able to read it and understand it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mélanie, and such important work. I want to give a special acknowledgement to your friend and colleague, Professor Marie Beaulieu, who has been part of this as a driving force. And again, raise that word maltraitement or bientraitance, right? Those words in English and in French that don't necessarily mean exactly the same thing. And I think that learning from each other's languages and cultures is a great asset to it. I'm moving into our Q&A session. Benedict, this is going to be you to flag for 1 second, but I'm going to jump into the first question while you come on. The first question is for Gregor Sneedon. And the question that was asked to it is, can you speak a little bit to where we are in terms of transportation? That many older adults don't have access to transportation, and that can be a real limiting and isolating factor. I know that that's an area of your interest. Maybe you could speak a little bit to what work you've been doing around transportation.
Certainly, thank you. Thank you for the question. We just completed a project called Fast Track along with CanAge and O'Hare Consulting this past year, which was a very exciting program, a funding accelerator. And part of that program was really looking at the Canadian landscape on what are the innovative solutions that municipalities, local communities are doing across the country. And it really is astounding to know that there really isn't an aggregated Canadian body that's really addressing this issue, which has clear impact on older people. If we want to have a communities for everybody, well, there has to be transportation for everybody. And we very much commend the recent announcement, of course, by Minister Cara on the Age Well at Home grants that are forthcoming. And we really hope there will be some opportunity there. We identified some really interesting programs across the country, sharing vehicles that are in community, from school buses to leased age-friendly commuters that could be leased and shared within communities. So we're continuing to explore, and stay tuned for a transportation age-friendly transportation 2.0.
Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you for that question. We've got some more great questions. Benedict, what else do we have in the hopper?
Well, we have quite a few. It's been a bit of a marathon in here with the Q&A and the chat box. I'll start with one that I actually thought would be perfect for Margaret to answer. We have Mikey, who is asking, I want to get involved and I want to become an advocate for seniors. Where do I start? You know, it seems like such a big task. So what would you advise to somebody? Because I'm sure there are quite a few people asking the same question today.
Well, I would start in your local community. Who is doing this work? Who else is interested in advancing the issues of ageism and elder abuse? And, you know, if there isn't an elder abuse prevention network in your community, maybe you want to find somebody else and start one. You can also connect with, if you're in a province or territory that has a provincial or territorial network, find out what's available in your community through that group as well. And then, of course, the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse is kind of the umbrella organization that has relationships across the country. And so I think that that's a good starting place.
And there's no really wrong place to start, in a way.
No.
I think that's really important to imagine. There will be people who will work at a very high level of law, of reform and legislation and policy, and that's great. There's going to be people that are going to be doing door knocking in your next door neighbors, and that's great too. So what I would offer is think a little bit about kind of what level you want to work at. And assuredly, there's going to be a place for you. What a great question. And I put the link in the chat. Go ahead, Margaret.
If I can, I just want to also say, I want to point to CanAge, because CanAge has lots of great ideas. Like, really, if advocacy is your thing, go to CanAge and look at what's there.
Just put a plug. It's free to join, canage.ca/join. We just need your email. Okay, that was very fine, Margaret. I'll pay you later. What else do we have in the hopper, Benedict? I know we have a lot of questions.
I'm going to jump around and just kind of follow a general thread. So we have a question from Anne for Helen, which is wondering if Helen could explain a bit more what she meant when she said that she could not find diversity and age within her work. What did that mean? I think she wanted to know more.
Thank you. I think it was misunderstood. What I was trying to say, if I didn't say it correctly, was that when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we always talk about various, identities, whether they're, gender, race, cultural, but we do not tend to include age in that diversity mix when we're talking about DEI in businesses, in government, in organizations. Age tends to be missing. It may be talked about in generalities, but it isn't specifically named or talked about. And I can give you a quick example. The other day I was attending a conference and a high-level official told a story about a little old woman who was running up to the podium, and he said she was either really angry or very excited to share something with me. And then, of course, she was angry, but he didn't realize that, in fact, what he was doing was singling out, this little old lady and conform to some of the stereotypes of angry older individuals. It's so pervasive and it's so implicit that many people don't get it. So it's a huge education issue that we're working on. That's what I meant.
Thank you very
And
much.
such an important piece. I just put in the chat box there as well, a great global initiative, and many of us on the call are part of that initiative. Welcome to join. Yes, CanAge is a pan-Canadian organization. Anyone can join. So says Arlene. And so the link for the Living, Learning, Earning Longer Collaborative is there, and we invite your organization to join that if you're interested in the diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation. Blandine has asked Benedict s'il peut faire les questions aussi en français. We've had a little bit of a challenge with our French interpretation. So I'll invite you in English and French to ask the next question.
Ok, on va essayer. I'll start with the French. Une question de Helen, pas notre panéliste, une autre Hélène, qui a une question à propos de la loi, puisqu'on parlait de la loi au Québec. Quand il s'agit de faire un rapport ou d'intervenir, les lois qui ont à voir avec l'intervention dans les cas de maltraitance, est-ce que c'est fédéral, est-ce que c'est provincial, comment est-ce que ça marche? Pour les enfants, il y a une loi avec l'obligation de signalement. Et comment ça marche pour les aînés? So the question is about reporting and intervention law. Helen, a person in the attendance, not Helen or Spence, wants to know, is it federal? Is it provincial? How does it work? And pointing out that for children, there is a duty to report in the law, of course.
Maybe I can answer both in French and English, since I can.
I think we have our interpretation working now. Let me just see. Say something in English, Melanie, and I'll check.
Hello. But I can do it really fast in both, and there's no problem. So, I'll do it in English first and then in French. So the law is actually provincial, and there is mandatory reporting within the law. Actually, in the new law, there has been some changes to whom it is addressed. So in the first one, it was only people in long-term care facilities, but now it's also in intermediate residences, family type residences, and also in senior residences if the person is considered vulnerable according to the definition in the law. So it's really about it's provincial, but there's a whole system. It's not just about mandatory reporting, because then you can report to different people depending on the situation, and then there's the process that is going on. So the point is to get people to report and then manage the different cases with the support that is already in place and more structured. So, si je le fais en français, donc la loi, c'est une loi provinciale. Et oui, il y a mon Dieu, là, je ne sais pas en français. Il y a du signalement obligatoire. Dans l'ancienne loi, c'était juste pour les personnes en CHSLD ou sous curatelle. Maintenant, il y a aussi en résidence intermédiaire, en résidence de type familial et en résidence pour personnes aînées également. Et l'idée, c'est que les personnes vont faire le signalement pour ensuite que le cas soit pris en charge dans le système déjà en place. Donc, c'est différentes personnes dépendamment du contexte, mais l'idée, c'est que, justement que les cas soient pris en charge principalement. Mais c'est provincial, donc c'est vraiment au niveau de la province du Québec.
Thank you. And I'm just going to perhaps, if I may, add on to that, and I'll do it in both languages. That reporting, as you say, is provincial. So just for the non Quebec context, that is also true. And to whom you report, who you must report to, depends on the jurisdiction that you're at. I've included here the link to the brand new, refreshed Practical Guide to Abuse and Neglect in Canada from the Canadian Centre for Elder Law. And so in French, la déclaration est provinciale qui vous signalez et qui doit signaler dépend de la jurisdiction. Veuillez consulter le nouveau guide pratique sur la violence et la négligence au Canada de CCL jusqu'au coin there. Very much. Okay, so thank you very much. Benedict, do we have time for one more question? We do. Okay.
Okay, great. Somebody was asking about how to counter alienation of grandparents and families that cause isolation and that can lead to abuse. Are there any recommendations from anyone about this? It's a little bit outside of our scope today. Donc, qu'est-ce qu'on fait quand il s'agit de l'aliénation des grands-parents dans leur propre famille qui se sentent isolés?
I think probably a few people could answer, but if I may just jump in for a plug for RECAA.ca, RECAA.ca in Montreal. It's a fantastic organization that works to address elder abuse from an ethnocentric perspective through silent theater. So it creates a safe opportunity for elders and community members, for the elders to share and make aware of their experience without it being confrontational or calling out the community. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. I encourage you to have a look at that. And again, I think it goes to what all of the panelists really have been saying in so many ways, is addressing it right in our own communities and right within our own selves, and just refusing to participate in ageist type of work and calling out abuse when we see it.
I also want to give a plug to the Long Distance Grandparent Society that is being run by Carrie Byrne. I put it in the chat. It may not be specifically what this person is talking to, but there are tons of tips that are relevant to those of us who are not necessarily long distant.
I just wanted to add that in Quebec, we have an elder mistreatment helpline. So people can actually call 7 days a week from 8 in the morning, 8 at night, to actually have a discussion with somebody on the phone that's going to listen to them and see where they could go for help. So it's really, each situation is really specific. So you need sometimes somebody to support you to see where the appropriate help is.
And I just want to flag, Crystal's comment in the chat, who will protect those who do report and speak out? That is an existential question, Crystal. And if I had the answer to that, we wouldn't need this call right now, but I really appreciate your passion in that area. Again, I just want to also say, if there is a crime going on or somebody is in urgent need, you call the police. Don't forget, there is sometimes the police. Now, I understand the complexity of that, but if someone is in urgent situation, this is a time for rapid response from first responders, again, police, or if it's a health need, of course, the paramedics, and making sure you call your emergency 911. So don't forget that sometimes we think of it as always such a societal issue, but where people are in harm right now. And thanks very much for the links. Benedict, do we have time to sneak in one more question? I'm not sure we do.
We can try. I'm trying to find one that's easily answered, and there's none because this issue is so complex. But we do have a lot of questions about what can a person or a family do when they're running against systemic abuse, when they're running against, laws, establishments that are reluctant to hear, reluctant to support. Where do they even start? And that's a big one. So I don't know if we can even fully answer this one. Que faire quand on rencontre de la maltraitance qui est au niveau systémique?
Maybe I can help with that one. Actually, there are, patient association. And so depending on your status, you can actually get help from these type of advocacy group for these types of issues. So depending on where you live in Canada, usually there are some advocacy group to fight against the type of establishment you're trying to fight against. So you could always look at that. But the other thing I would say is, first of all, you need to actually document it and see whether or not it fits within the organizational mistreatment definition. So is it really organizational mistreatment? And what are the normal route you can take to actually make a complaint? When you've been through all of that, then you can go to, like I said, organization, or even at the beginning, just to get help to actually make a complaint. So you can actually do it in a more efficient way. So don't do it alone. Just try to find these types of groups to help you actually file the complaint. And usually it goes way better that way. And they can also inform you about whether or not this issue has been reported before, and they can even help you to go beyond the establishment itself.
Thank you so much. And I just put a couple comments as well, both bilingually. Excuse my written French at the last minute, but some thoughts about systemic issues. And then organizations who are doing advocacy are trying to make system change. We often talk about it as two levers. There's the lever that you can do yourself, and there's levers where you have to get somebody else to pull it. And I encourage you to look at the Future Us materials and the accompanying videos. And there is a video that specifically is talking about systemic change, but like any form of ism, it's hard and it could take generations. At this point, Benedict, I know we have great questions. We can follow up later with some of the more specific questions. I know some people had some very particular ones they followed up with, and that information is in the chat. If you've got a particular concern, again, you can always reach out to the helplines and through your local elder abuse prevention network. Some of those numbers were in the chat. So Benedict, we want to make sure that you have kind of one of our last words here before I turn it over to Rayanne. You have been a leader in this field. You have been lifting up the voices and supporting the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. We have that opportunity, I think, to move that forward. And we're going to close today, after you and Rayanne have a few final words, with Minister Pon, who is our last government official. So Benedict, any last words to you before we turn it to Rayanne and then Minister Pon?
Sure. The first final word, the first of the final words is a big thank you. A big thank you to all of you who have participated today, all the passion, the quite fiery in the comments and Q&A box. We do this and we understand that we can't provide all the answers in an hour and a half, but we are trying our best to keep tackling this issue over and over and keep talking and keep raising awareness and teaching how to handle it. And I really hope that all of you here today have a chance to visit futureuss.cnpea.ca, because it actually does answer a lot of the questions asked today about what can I do individually, what can my community do, what does it look like when we're trying to actually include all voices, a comment that was made several times today, because obviously we did not even manage to touch fully on that and, you know, talk about what does it look like to convene communities that are representative of Canada today, that is not just all white and all the same. We do talk about this in Future Us. I hope that you can find some inspiration in there to take action and to motivate your leaders to do so as well. So thank you. We look forward to hearing from you. You can always connect with us by email or via our website. And I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you for your passion and leadership, Benedict. Our last words, we still have a minute left to go. We have Minister Pon and Rayanne. Over to you, Rayanne, to help take us through that.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you for everyone for sharing your great expertise and wisdom today on these important issues that we've discussed. I just do want to remind everyone to take the pledge if you haven't done so already. You can do that at wead.ca. It's available. There's information available to take the pledges in English and French. The icons are there. So please take a couple minutes and do that if you haven't done so already. Share on social media to get the word out today. And I just want to end, and we will we have a message from the Honorable Minister Josephine Pon from Alberta, the Minister of Seniors and Housing.
Hello everyone, June 15 is a World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, a day for all of us to unite together against elder abuse. Seniors build this province and are cherished members of our community. They should feel respect, support, and safe. Sadly, this is not always the case. Elder abuse is a serious issue in our province. It is estimated that more than 1 in 10 Alberta seniors is the victims of elder abuse. Alberta's government is taking actions to address elder abuse by working closely with our community partner to find solutions. But every single one of us has part to play to help support and stop elder abuse. You can start it by simply talking about it with your friends, family, and neighbors to grow awareness. The more people that shine a light on this issue, the easier it will be stopped before it happens. You can also check it on the seniors in your life and in your community. And that if you know someone who may be a victim of elder abuse, please reach out for help. Seniors deserve to live free from harm and abuse. Let's work together to make our province safe for them. Thank you.
We did put up the speaker contact information. So if anybody would like to connect with any of the speakers, the emails are provided as well as their websites. And the slide deck will be available on the websites of all organizations as well. I'm just going to lastly turn it over to Laura just to give some final words about how they can connect with us and end the session today.
Great. Thanks, everyone. What an amazing conversation from coast to coast to coast. Et même en deux langues, and, you know, two languages in sign language as well. This has been a huge amount of work on behalf of the organizers, and I'm grateful to see how much government participation is here as well. Great ways to stay in touch. You'll see it here. And we put some of the social media handles at CanAge, at CNPEA, the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, and so on, all to donate to. And you can certainly know that any donations that you make to these worthy organizations, and I'm going to particularly call out the first two, are enormously helpful to keeping on the ground support for older adults and to make sure that we're addressing and responding to elder abuse and neglect. So make a gift, make a difference. We're all working together. Your feedback, of course, is important to us. Every year we go through it and we try to make changes for continuous improvement. You're going to get a little survey quickly. Also, all of this recording is in its entirety going to be available. The link will be that in your email follow-up as well, or you can go to any of our websites and you will see this as well. Thank you. Have a wonderful Elder Abuse Awareness Day. My sincere and profound gratitude to all of your leadership, your time, your efforts today, and merci à tous. À bientôt.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.